Welcome to Two Main Friends. We're your hosts,
Natasha
and Lindsey.
Grab your coffee and come sit with us for a bit.
Happy Sunday.
Happy recording day.
Does Sunday end your week or does it start your week?
Oh, I think we talked about, I
think we did talk about this. I never remember.
It is the beginning
For
of the
you?
week. Yeah.
Yeah. I look at it as the end of my week. I don't know why. I think it's just because it's like my wrap up day, clean my house. Maybe it is the beginning because it's like I'm cleaning my house, I'm meal prepping, I'm getting a
You're
fresh
setting
start.
yourself up for the week. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I go back and forth. Maybe this week I feel like it's setting me up.
Next week it could be different.
It could be. It's a week by week thing.
Of course. I think it's because we are in ministry, so Sunday is a big day for us and there's a lot going on.
Yeah,
And so usually Friday, Saturday, we're doing all the other things about life because then Sunday we're just, full steam ahead.
that's fair.
And that feels like the start to the week because then Monday is back to work and all of the other things. So um, I tend to think that Sunday is the beginning of the week.
I agree. When I worked in ministry, I also considered Sunday like my first day of work because I had Saturdays off typically. So
Mhm.
yeah, I would agree that definitely puts a different spin on it. And I feel like now, because I start my week at work on Monday, Sunday is a break day still. So I don't know. But next week it might be different. Who knows?
I feel like I relate to the meme I saw last week that said these weekends are feeling like lunch breaks
Yeah.
because there's just been so much going on in life
Mhm.
every weekend that by the time Monday rolls around, I'm like, what did we like? There was no time to stop. Like, how are we back at Monday? I just left here.
Yeah, no, that's fair. I feel the same. I think that's a good segue. So this week we're talking about mental health
Mm.
on the pod. And before we jump into that, let's have some real talk. How are you doing this week?
This week has been a lot. It's kind of stressful and overwhelming. We just moved this weekend, like Friday. We moved into a new apartment. Um, and so, all of the things that happen around moving, like the packing, all of the stuff, I'm still remembering, oh, it was like 2 days before we moved. I was like, I need to contact the post office and change my address. And then, of course, that spins into all the other places you have to change your address. So it's fine and it's going well now that we're there. I have to unpack, but we're there. So that part of the whole moving process is over. But there's just a lot to that. And then it breaks up your rhythm because we've been getting a lot of takeout and food stuff is just kind of weird because the kitchen's been packed up and so we're trying to piecemeal this stuff together and how are we feeding the children? And so that just I feel out of balance because of that. The rhythm has been offset and we'll get back into it eventually. And I keep reminding my boys of that. I'm like, guys, I know it's been busy. There's been a lot going on, but hold on. We're almost there. It's not going to be like this forever. We're going to make it. And we will. It might be July before we're unpacked, but we'll get there.
Get there.
How about you? How are you doing this week?
I am exhausted. I
Mhm.
think I pushed myself to the social battery limit of 0%.
Mm.
And by no fault of not wanting to have chill time, it was a very busy week for work on the social spectrum. I did a lot of high school events. I did one on Tuesday, Monday. I don't even know what days of the week. I was somewhere Tuesday. I was somewhere Thursday. It just all kind of feels like a blur. Oh, Tuesday I presented at a training. That's what it was. So I was presented in front of colleagues at a training.
Wow.
And then Thursday I had 2 job fairs back to back. And then in between all of that, Wednesday I teleworked, but I had meetings, and then I had not only 3 meetings on my calendar, but I also had a plethora of people just teams messaging me and jumping on video calls with them. One of my meetings was another presentation with the Department of Labor. So I just kind of was thrown everywhere last week.
Mm.
And I certainly didn't feel like I had any just quiet time. My desk felt kind of out of control. And I knew I was rolling right into that this weekend. And so finally on Friday, I like pulled the plug and was like, no, I'm just going to stay home Saturday and Sunday. And the
Yeah.
person that I plans with, I was like, sorry, but I just need a minute to breathe, you know?
Yeah.
And then I absorb everything. We talked a little bit about this before the call, but just the news in Maine has not been great. It hasn't felt good to open up any news station or read any articles lately. There's just a lot of sadness going around our state right now. And it just makes me sad for that. And I like absorb that feeling a lot.
Hmm. Yeah, it's definitely an interesting time in our area. There seems to be an uptick in violence, and at least in my community where we live, it seems like every other day almost, or several times a week,
Mhm.
there's something happening in the neighboring town, which is less than a mile away. Um, and yeah, it can feel heavy. It can feel like a lot. And also,
Mhm.
like, what world are we living in right now?
Yeah.
Because this didn't used to be the way of Maine. Um, I've lived here my whole life, and we rarely had anything happen. So, yeah, I can sympathize with that for sure.
Yeah. So that's just where I'm at this week, but it's okay. We're rolling into a new week, new perspectives, new thoughts. um, Tomorrow I'm presenting at another high school in the morning, so that's how I'll start my day. But it's good.
How
Actually,
exciting.
I actually do enjoy it, and tomorrow's will be fun. They're doing a galaxy theme because tomorrow is May 4th, so may the 4th be with you uh, on the 4th. So that will be exciting, and it's just kind of fun because you do it in a classroom setting. The students sign up to go to your session, so they actually want to be there, which is great.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah,
That
and
sounds
so I'm
like
taking
fun.
yeah, and I'm taking another one of our employees who works out in the field as opposed to just in HR, so they can talk about their journey and how they work their way up. So that would be good and less talking for me.
Keep that social battery up
Yes, we sure
in
are.
any way you can.
Yes, yes. So, like we said, May is Mental Health Awareness Month, and I know for the two of us, I think I can speak for you that this is something that we care so much about and are very passionate about. I know for me, I tell everyone you should do therapy at least once in your life because it is literally life changing.
Yeah, and I echo that. Um, I always say you can have therapy and Jesus, and they can go together.
Mhm.
And even if you do grow in, or if you're in circles where therapy is looked down on for religious reasons, um, that doesn't have to be true. And I love Jesus, and I still go to therapy, and it's been a huge game changer. And I'm really thankful for that, and also see the need for how we need to be better at that, like just all around as a society, be better about mental health. I think it's taking, um, it's getting better, right? Like it's talked about more, but I still think that we can do a lot to improve.
I agree. And that is one thing that I appreciate about you and your husband and your ministry from the pulpit. You have both said out loud that you do therapy, and not a lot of people in ministry, especially from the pulpit, especially as a pastor, are willing to admit that they have done therapy or maybe need to do therapy or actually take the steps to do therapy. It's just not realistic. I know for me, I grew up always hearing like, have more faith, pray harder about it. And it's like, those things are great. And I do believe that, faith is important in that. And I do think that prayer is important in that. However, there's something about having a non biased perspective
Hmm.
to help you navigate life. And therapy is 100% that.
Yeah, I will always stand on the soapbox, right? Because we're all people at the end of the day. And
Mhm.
regardless of what position you hold and what ministry you're a part of, we're still people, and people need help. And it's something that I didn't grow up listening to people have good opinions about it. And just like you said, right? Like you have to have more faith. You need to pray about it more. You need to, there's a whole list of things you can say that is. And yes, that's true. Like we do need to have faith and pray, but sometimes we've used all the tools that we have, and
Mhm.
therapy gives you different tools to use. And those tools are important because if you don't have them, you can't use them. And so once you're given tools, then you can become better at the things that you're struggling with and have a better perspective, a better outlook on things, and better coping mechanisms and all of that stuff. And, you know, I just am very grateful that we have that resource available to us now. Um, and I think that it's important that whether you're a person in leadership in ministry or not, being okay with the fact that therapy is a good thing is important because it does help a lot of people.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I love to learn about mental health and the stats that go with it, and
Mhm.
not a lot has changed since probably we've done an episode similar to this, and not a lot has changed in those stats, but I just like to go over it because I think it puts it in a good perspective for us that 1 in 5 adults experience some form of mental illness this past year. And these stats come from 2025 into 2026. So it's more 2025 driven because we're only in April of 2026, but still, 1 in 5 adults at some point. And then this one really makes me sad. 1 in 5 youth are dealing with mental health conditions, with anxiety being the most common of those. And I
That is
definitely,
staggering.
yeah, if you think of a classroom of 20 students and 1 in 5, that's a pretty high number of students sitting in a classroom dealing with those things. And if you are the parent of that youth and you haven't sought therapy for the things that you have gone through, and maybe you are an anxious person and you've passed this down to your child, and if you don't know how to talk about it, how will the children ever know how to talk about it? And so I think it's so important for us as adults to take that leading step so that the kids of the next generation know how to identify and talk about the things they're walking through.
I just had this conversation with my oldest son last week or 2 weeks ago. I alluded earlier that like we've been going through a lot of changes, and I've been trying to check in with them to make sure that they're doing okay because that can be a lot when you're moving and you're a kid, right? Like you're uprooting your life to move to a different home. And so I kept checking in on them. They seemed to be fine. And then one day out of the blue, my oldest was like, "Mom, can we talk about my mental health?" That's how he said it. And I was like kind of taken aback by that question because he just turned 11. So I was like, I didn't even know you knew what that meant. And so I was like, of course, yeah, absolutely. And so that night we sat down and he kind of talked me through where he was at and what he was feeling and why he'd been behaving certain ways in the last couple of weeks that have been challenging. And it was a really great moment to be able to have that conversation and be open about it. Like, yeah, I understand where you're coming from. And one of the things he said is I've been feeling sad since like December. And I was like, "Well, buddy, we live in New England, and that's common for a lot of us." And so I talked to him about like what seasonal depression is and like how that like when the weather's dark and cold and whatever, it can affect us and we can feel sad. And so it was great, but also being able to have those conversations in a way that is, helpful and hearing what he's saying and meeting him where he is important because they need that support too. As much as we are seeking help for those things, how much more do the kids need it? And to be adults that can be safe spaces for them to say, "Can we check in? I'd like things feel off and I don't know what's going on." And walk them through like, "Okay, well what you're feeling is normal." And identify what it is because sometimes they don't understand it. But if we can identify it, then we can help them work through the process to handle it.
Yeah, absolutely. On the hopeful side, with that is that about 75% of people who enter therapy, my favorite word, see measurable improvements, and even things like exercise can reduce the depression symptoms by up to 50%. And so, with what you were just saying about the seasonal depression side of things, exercise during those dark months for us as adults, and I think for children too, that can certainly help us reduce those symptoms by up to 50%. But it's interesting to me that whenever the sun does start to come out and we are able to be outside, it also tends to reduce that. And I didn't look that number up, but I've in the past, I've seen numbers like 30% or 25% of
Wow.
reducing it. And so it's insane to me like how much just a dose of sunshine can change your mood. And I've read statistics in the past that say 15 minutes of sunshine can literally change the whole course of your day and your mind.
I can feel it. Like we just had a warm day the other day and
Mhm.
I felt that. Like it was kind of like my personality came back. I was like, "Oh, I'm a person."
Yeah.
Right? And we joke about it, but like I was texting with a friend who was like, "Man, spring is hitting really different this year." I was like, "I feel it." Like for some reason, the last few winters feel like they're longer
Mhm.
or harsher maybe than they've been in the last like 5+ years. And
Mhm.
so by the time the sun comes out, it's kind of like you've been hit with fresh air. And
Yeah.
so you're like, oh,
I'm alive.
I know how to, I'm a person.
It's
And
true.
like, because honestly, we're just wilted house plants. Like we need that sunshine to perk us back up a little bit.
Yes, absolutely. No, I agree. There's that video that goes around of people chasing the sunlight in their houses.
Yes.
And that's literally me most days. If
Yeah.
there's sun, I wanna be where the sun is. When I work from home, often will go into my bedroom with my little table tray and my chair, and I'll do 15 or 20 minutes of work in there,
Yeah.
because the sun is shining the best in there. I just said the other day I bought a new table set for my deck that I can actually sit at and do work in the summertime,
Mm.
for my telework days, and I'm just so excited to be able to just be outside as much as possible for that reason.
That's my plan. So in our new neighborhood, we're actually able to walk to a playground
Mhm.
and the neighborhood has good sidewalks. And so we can actually take walks again. And I'm so looking forward to just taking the boys, going for a walk, going out to the playground because where we were before, we were pretty removed from that and we had to drive everywhere to get to those places. And I miss being able to just walk around a neighborhood. Like, and I told the boys, I was like, hey, once we get settled, after dinner, we're going to go for a walk every night. And you guys can take your bikes and we're just going to make it a habit because we need it. Every one of us. Like they need it for their energy. We need it to get moving and we all feel better at the end of the day. So I'm also super pumped to be outside a lot because that's just what we need.
Yeah, no, and on the reverse side, right? Like physical health is so good for our mental health, and there's such a
Mhm.
connection between the two. And mental health doesn't always just stay in our head, right? Like there's a
Mhm.
lot of it, our anxiety or depression, or there's so many other things that we don't talk about, bipolar disorder, or there's so many. The list could go on that aren't just the stereotypical that people talk about.
Mhm.
But it shows up in your body too. Stress can look like headaches, muscle tension, childhood trauma or adult trauma, things that we walk through can even turn into digestive issues or chronic illness.
Mhm.
And then on the flip side, if you're walking through chronic illness or ongoing medical stuff, that can impact your mental health and trigger things like anxiety and depression. So it's so important that we take care of our whole self, physical, mental, emotional, in order for our body to have a healthy release.
And I heard it said too that emotion is energy in motion. And so sometimes the emotions that we feel get trapped in our body and we don't know how to release it. So we have to get our body moving so we can work through those emotions. And sometimes you need that to be hand in hand.
I agree. I definitely think that we have to put motion into our bodies to just allow it to release itself from us.
Yeah. And I never really heard that explained that way before, but it
Mhm,
makes a lot of sense because, especially if you're someone who struggles to express emotion, or know how to verbalize what you're saying. Like I struggle with verbalizing it, right? Like it's really easy to think it and feel it, but to verbalize it and say, I'm struggling with, fill in the blank. I have
yeah,
a hard time with that because sometimes I don't know what I'm feeling. I just
right.
know that I'm having a bad day or overwhelmed by what's going on around me. And so to understand that sometimes the emotions that we're feeling have to be worked through our body,
Mhm,
otherwise they stay there. It makes sense. Like then your shoulders are tense or your jaw clenches and like sometimes I have to remind myself to like drop the shoulders or like, you
yeah,
know, breathe. Sometimes you have to remind yourself like take a deep breath. Like you're not breathing well. Um and that's important because as we're learning to cope with things and
Mhm.
understand how our body works, then it is easier to do it. But until you know, you can't do better unless you know better.
That's true. That's so true. For me, I know when I'm stressed out or when I'm feeling anxious. Both of those go hand in hand for me. Usually I'm feeling anxious, which then stresses me out that I'm feeling anxious, and then it's just all downhill. But my tall tale sign is when I'm driving in my car or really just sitting down, I grind my feet into the ground and then
Mm,
my knees feel it and my legs feel it and I start to just feel achy. But
yeah,
like, wow, I'm sitting heavy on my feet is how I describe it because like my feet are planted down, but all of my pressure from my body weight is going into the floor. And then I just
interesting.
start to feel it. Yeah. So that's like a tall sign for me. And it's, time for me to stand up, take a walk, or fold my legs up into the seat and just breathe for a minute and let that tension out.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's
Yeah.
crazy.
Yeah. Look for those signs and then figure out a way to release them
Yeah.
because you can't we can't keep it bottled up.
No. And no matter what that feeling is, if it's anxiety, if it's depression, if it's just feeling overwhelmed, like those things start to impact how we make decisions. And then we can go into that fight or flight mode. And it's so easy to then start making decisions out of fear or panic. When we're feeling
Mm,
anxious about things, we're not thinking clearly. And so then, whenever it's time to make a big move in our life, if we are leaning into the anxiety side of it or into the depression that we might be feeling, we start to miss opportunities because we start thinking, well, I'm not good enough for that, or I'm not qualified enough for that, or I'm scared to do that because I'm in the safety of my comfort zone right now,
mm.
and you start panicking about, well, what if I do it and it doesn't work out? Been there, guilty as charged. I interviewed for a job a year ago that I could have had. Well, now 2 years ago, because I've been in my job for almost a year, which is mind blowing. But but 2 years
Yeah, it
ago,
is.
I interviewed with the same department that I'm working for right now, and I was too scared to do it because I didn't think well, there were two parts to that. I didn't think I would enjoy it, which was ultimately why I made my decision, but I also didn't think I was qualified enough. But
Mm,
also, I almost walked away from the opportunity that I'm in now because anxiety was at the forefront of my decision making in the beginning, and I didn't think I was qualified enough for it. I, in fact, sit in imposter syndrome most days, thinking that I'm still not qualified enough to do what I'm doing and to be where I'm at. But if I made that my decision, I would have missed out on an opportunity that has been nothing but growth for me in the little time that I have been there. So I think we have to be so careful that when we are feeling those feelings, that we do work them out so that we're not making decisions based on our anxiety, our depression, our mental health, whatever the case may be. We really have to
right.
lean into solving that and not missing opportunities.
That's such a great point because it's true. Like we often limit ourselves based on what we're experiencing in our minds or how we feel in the moment. And there's a lot to be said to that. And I think we could dive into that probably on like another whole episode when we talk about the ins and outs of how mental health can affect different areas of your life.
Mhm.
And it's it's not and like we're talking about it now because we've been through it and we've come through to the other side, but when you're in the middle of it, you don't see the end. You
Mhm.
don't see how there could be a better way because it feels so all encompassing, but there is a better way and you don't have to stay in that state of super anxious, overly depressed, really dark days. Like there
Mhm.
can be a light at the end of the tunnel. Sometimes that requires us to reach out for help. And I should say sometimes, most times, right? Because we have to be willing to share what we're going through for us to be able to move forward into a way that we can get the help that we need so that we can be better later on.
Mhm. Yeah, absolutely. I can remember when I first started going to the last therapist that I had. And it was really because I was dealing with a lot of that anxiety-based and fear-based decision making, and I sought her out more as a life coach than a therapist, but she ended up being more therapy than life coaching, which was exactly
Mhm.
what I needed in that season that I was in because I was making those big transitions for a job, and that's when she kind of did the OCD testing with me, and I
Mhm.
found out that I was borderline that. And I think for me, when I thought of OCD, I just thought of the typical things like, is the oven on? Is the stove on? Or did I lock the door? Did I leave the hair straightener on? And don't get me wrong, I have all of those things and I still struggle with those things where I might not even use the hair straightener. And I'm like, oh, did I use that today? Is that turned on? Or the oven. I didn't even turn most mornings. I'm going to be so for real. I don't cook breakfast for myself. I don't use the oven, but I leave the house thinking, is the oven turned off? Just because my brain thinks about last night, or, I cooked a meal
Yeah.
yesterday on it, or whatever. I recently got a new microwave, and because my old microwave was sparking, my brain is like, is that going to explode today? Because that's just where I go in my head. But as we dug deeper into it, I also realized that some of my tendencies and the compulsive part of it was I'm not a good friend. And I would harp on that, or I would go and think about conversations that I had, and I would obsess about the conversation and everything I said wrong. And nobody said that I said anything wrong. Nobody came to me and said they were offended. I just overthought, oh, maybe I overshared, or maybe I, said too much and I shouldn't have said this or whatever. And so that is also a part that like can ruin your relationships because then for me it was just kind of like diving back down and being like, okay, well, I'm not going to speak, and then no one gets the chance to get to know you, right? So like you're constantly like playing the conversation in your head, and then you're constantly saying, well, I'm just going to be a little bit quieter next time, and I'm not really going to let them in next time, because that's a protective mechanism for yourself. So yeah, I just learned a lot about those pieces.
Yeah, that's a lot of great insight because oftentimes the anxiety or the depression is stemming from something else.
Mhm.
And um I don't know how true the statement is. I heard it somewhere and it kind of resonated in the moment. But somebody once said that anger turned inward can then develop into depression.
Mhm.
And I couldn't relate to that, right? Because um, I struggled with depression for a long time. And I think that that has some value to what that statement says. And so when you think about the fact that our emotions or our thoughts and our um, feelings, when we're not addressing them appropriately, can turn into these other symptoms of other things because we've stuffed it down so far that now it's sitting and resting in our person and we haven't worked it out, and then you have to do the digging to get to
Yeah.
the root, and then once you find the root, then you're like, "Oh, this makes sense now."
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. And I think that, I mean, we've talked about a lot about the different things that it can cause in your body and stuff. And so then I think the question kind of becomes like, how do we live well while we navigate mental health, while we try to find
Mm,
therapy? Because let's be honest, it's not easy to find help because we're so inundated as a society with the need for mental health. And so, unfortunately, not all insurances cover it. Unfortunately, not everyone has access to it. So, what
mhm.
are some things that we can do to navigate it? And this year, the Mental Health Americas theme is probably one of my favorite themes that I've seen in a long time. And it's more good days together. And
I love that.
I love that too. And we talk a lot about community, and that just really hit home for me. More good days together.
I've been talking to a lot of people just this weekend specifically about the need for community. And I think that's one of the first steps. I don't know the statistics off the top of my head, but I do know that there studies are showing that isolation can be as detrimental to a person's body as if they smoke a pack of cigarettes a day.
Mhm.
And when you put that in perspective, like the damage that that does to your body by being alone. And I think I don't know the year specifically, but the your life expectancy shortens by a significant amount of years if you
Mhm.
don't have good community. And so how can we live well? I think it starts by having a good community, because when we're surrounded by people that love us and show up for us and pour into us and have reciprocal relationships that are not only we pouring into, but they're pouring back into us and are life giving, the value of our life improves drastically. And when we're struggling and we are having those hard days, it's easier to reach out to those people that we know are there.
Mhm.
And when we can share, I'm having a really hard day, or parenting sucks right now, and I don't see the end of, I'm just like, this is hard. Or if you're struggling with anger and depression and anxiety or OCD or all the things we've talked about, but you can tell somebody about it. A lot of times, what is happening in the dark when you say it out loud becomes minimized,
Mhm.
because we can create things in our head by dwelling on them for so long that we've embellished the story to ourselves and like what's happening, that when you say it out loud, I'm struggling with X, all of a sudden it doesn't feel as big and scary because you said it out loud and you're like, wait, that doesn't
Mhm.
have as much weight. I don't like, and it's sometimes it's just as simple as saying it out loud. I'm struggling with XYZ, right?
Mhm.
And so I think the more that we get in the habit of sharing what we're actually feeling and asking the questions, how are you doing? And knowing I want the real answer. I don't want fine, I'm good, I'm okay, or I'm busy. Those are our pat responses that we give to everybody, but have community that says, I want to know the real answer, and be
Mhm.
honest about where you're at, because the only way that we can get better is if we start to name and say, this is what is happening and I need your help.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love that you said that because on the Mental Health America website, they said that research shows strong social support makes recovery 4 times more likely. 4 times.
Oh.
So it like quadruples the opportunity for you to heal your mind, to heal your body, to heal your emotions, to heal your heart. There's so many things that are tied into that. And it really comes down to breaking the stigma of mental health because when we meet people where they're at, we recognize that mental health is a personal journey. Each of us are going to handle it differently. We all have our different response mechanisms, how
Mhm.
we react to things because of the backgrounds that we come from, the perspectives that we had growing up. So if we can recognize that it's their personal journey and then build community around it, not
Mhm.
build community around who we are as a person, but around us that can really speak to us. Because if I just surround myself with people who are like me with like perspectives and mindsets, I'm never going to grow. I'm never going to go anywhere in life. But when I can build community around what I'm walking through with different perspectives, different ideas, different reacting mechanisms, I'm only going to be better for it. And building community is what helps reduce isolation, just what you talked
Mhm.
about. It creates a safe space for us and it normalizes the conversation around mental health.
Yeah. I just saw a video that was talking about this, and it said, um good friends don't let you hide in the dark, they come find you.
Yeah.
And sometimes you need your friend to come find you and say, "We're gonna go get coffee. Get in my car."
Yeah.
Right? And or, "Have you eaten today? I'm coming over with pizza."
Mhm.
And showing up in those ways and not waiting for permission, because sometimes I think we wait too long because, well, I'm not sure if they really need help, or they haven't said anything in a few days, so I'm sure they're fine. They're probably just busy. But showing up, like if I just showed up at your door and I was like, "Hey, we're gonna go get dinner," we're going to go get dinner and we're going to talk about it. And sometimes it's all we need to be pulled
Mhm.
out of that rut. And I mean, of course, I want to be gentle around the fact that some people don't have capacity for that. So maybe you show up and you bring the coffee to the house and you sit in silence, and that's okay. But showing up means so much. And
Yeah.
we need to start showing up for people, and in a different way than We have been. I think as a society, we've put up too many barriers because
Mhm.
we don't want to inconvenience somebody or we're not sure if they're up for that. And so then again, we fall into that isolation cycle of, well, they're busy doing their thing, I'm doing my thing. We'll catch up at some point. But
Mhm.
meanwhile, they could be sitting in a really dark place, deteriorating quickly, and they need you to show up.
Yeah. I saw a video earlier today that was talking about my non negotiable, and it was all around mental health. And I thought, what if our non negotiable was simply just having community in our life? And like this person was like, my non negotiable is getting a sweet treat or getting a coffee um, once a week. And I'm all for that. If that is something that brings you joy, your non negotiables in life should be something that brings you joy and brings you happiness. And if you're having a bad day or a bad week, can help just boost your mood even for a second or a minute. But what if our long term non negotiable was having a solid community around us? Because a sweet treat is only going to last for that 15 minutes of fame in your life of like
Is
this
that right?
coffee.
Like
That,
mine are in and out, like they're gone in like 3 minutes flat, right? Like
okay, we are not the same person when it comes to drinking our coffee, we've learned. But
oh,
yes,
coffee, that's true.
yeah,
I can
but
drink coffee a little bit longer, but if I'm eating a sweet treat, it's gone.
yeah, 5 seconds. Yeah, in and out. I agree.
And it
But
was a great 5 seconds.
right, right. But like, right, like I said earlier, I had just kind of a ick day, like before we got on the call. Like I just recognize that the community around us is struggling and people in this world are struggling. And there's been a lot of bad news articles and that brings down the mood. So I went to one of my favorite coffee shops today and I just got a latte and I sat in line and I listened to a book and that felt good, for the moment. But that feeling is fleeting
Yep,
eventually, right? And
yep.
so but community doesn't have to be fleeting when we surround ourselves with the right people. That doesn't have to be a 5-second feeling. It can be that feeling that, oh, I'm having a really bad day and I really could just use somebody to let me say it out loud too. 12-minute conversation with a friend, with somebody that you trust, can literally I don't know the full study behind it, but I've read that it can release endorphins inside of you that can carry you through multiple days of just being able, like you said, to speak it out loud and say it out loud to make it feel less heavy. And you're also not in the physical sense giving it to that person to carry, but you're not carrying
Right,
it alone,
right.
right? And now you've spoke it out loud and now somebody knows and they can reach out to you and just check in and see how you're doing. And for us, having that person to just check in with you can change. You may not think so, but as somebody starts checking into you and as you start feeling seen and heard or wanted in the conversation, it really does change some brain waves and some patterns in your life.
And checking in is such a simple thing that we can start with, right? Like, hey, I was thinking about you today. How's it going? Like
Mhm.
those texts I send, I try to be consistent in sending them when I think about people. I'm not great about it all the time, but there's a few people that I have on like repeat. Like if I haven't seen or heard from them in a couple of um days, but like a week or more, then I'm definitely like, "Hey, I was thinking about you. How are you doing? How are things going?" And it's easy, right? Like that
Mhm.
takes a couple of seconds to send a text. It
Mhm.
doesn't take a lot of time, but you don't know what that does for the person who receives it, right?
Yes. Yeah.
And that's easy, like that's so simple and it takes no time out of our day.
Mhm.
And the more that we do that and make that a habit, when people come across our mind, rather than like, oh, was thinking about them, like tell them you're thinking about them,
Yeah.
because that can really boost somebody
Mhm.
and help them be like, oh, they thought about me? Like,
Great.
why? You know? And then you can have a conversation about how much that meant to you. And I just like we should just normalize that. Like
Mhm.
why do we wait to tell people we were thinking about them? Why do we wait and just keep that inside and hold that in? Like what
Yeah.
does that benefit? And so um I just that's one of the my soapboxes, I guess. I just really want it to like just say it out loud. Like when you think about somebody, or when you want to do something nice and you have the means to do it, send them a coffee gift card or have a DoorDash to work, or, like those things go a long way, and it makes the world a better place.
Yeah, it definitely makes a difference. I think to wrap up today's episode, because I feel like we could talk for hours and hours on this topic
Probably.
alone, honestly. Um, but I would just encourage you this week to think about, how does your body store your mental health? What are you walking through today? And what can you do today to change that?
Hmm.
Is it maybe going for a walk? Is it being intentional about stretching your body? Is it being intentional about reaching out to a friend? What are some non negotiables that you can implement in your life that are going to make long term differences? Maybe it's diet, maybe it's exercise, maybe it's community. And with community, I would also say that it's a two-way street. As much as you want community and crave it, you also have to be honest in it and vulnerable in it, because it's one thing to have a person and tell them that you're struggling and that you need them to maybe just reach out and check in during the week and asking that. But are you being honest with them when they're asking those questions and truly saying, you know what, this hasn't been good. This is what I'm struggling with. I could just use a little bit more accountability here. Um, and as the person that is being reached out to, maybe you need to work on creating a safe space or normalize the conversation a little bit more. And I think we can all improve in that. I know I can definitely
Yeah.
improve on being more available, and I can also improve on being more vulnerable um, to the relationships that I have and being honest at where I'm at. So I would encourage you today that there are more good days together. And I love that saying. So go out, find your community, find the things that are going to make you better today, and make those your non negotiables. That's a wrap on this episode of Two Main Friends in a Podcast. Follow us on Facebook or Instagram. You can also send us an email at twomainfriends@gmail.com. And as always, leave us a review wherever you're listening.